The guest has arrived. The host is prepped and ready. Ladies and gentlemen, this is One-on-One with Bill Alexander.
Hi, everyone. Yours truly, William Eric Alexander. All my friends call me Bill, and you're on One-on-One with Bill Alexander. Really looking forward today because we're talking about the days of WIBG radio in Philadelphia. And today, as I pull out my let's see, here it is. So I have my WIBG album, and if you look right here, there is. Let's see, there it is. There's who I'm speaking to today. Ray Gilmore is who's on the line with me today, and let's say hi to Ray. Hi, Ray. How are you doing?
I'm doing sensational. I'm, as I said earlier, I'm upright and I'm vertical and breathing. And look, I have one of these. Look.
Yes, you do.
Look.
But wait a minute. Not
I
only
just validated myself. Yes, I was on the radio.
Not only are you Ray Gilmore, but you're also Sean Casey.
Yeah. Yeah, they changed my name when I went to New York. They didn't think Raymond was a good radio name. Or Gilmore.
I like it.
I do too. And my parents apparently did because that's what they named me. Anyway, they didn't think it was Irish enough, politically acceptable for New York City at the time. And what they did, they had a little contest around the office, and one of the secretaries said, "You know, I'm really into Sean O'Casey, the poet," and they, "Oh, yeah, well, let's drop the O and just call him Sean Casey." And I said, "As long as the check's clear, we're good," you know. And
so how hard was it to get used to a new name?
That was difficult. It was. I screwed up a few times, you know. You're on the air and all of a sudden just like if you say the wrong call letters from the station you were 3 years ago, you know, it just comes out once in a while. I lived in Bergen County, New Jersey, in Englewood, and I would drive over to the city, New York City, every night to do the show. And when I'd go over, as I left New Jersey, and I was Ray Gilmore, but I'd cross the George Washington Bridge, and halfway across the bridge, all of a sudden, I don't know what it was. But all of a sudden I was Sean Casey, and I had a whole new demeanor about myself. And I didn't know how it was happening, why it was happening, but I swear I felt a difference and I liked it.
So I'm going back and I'm looking at stuff, and you and I have talked about this before, because I also have my Spokesmen album here.
Oh, yeah.
That I have, and you're also in the center of that. But the thing is, when you started in radio, was radio your first passion, or was it actually writing music?
I had no passion. I had no idea when I got out of high school where I was going, what I was going to do. I had no plan, no strategy. All I remember is my parents being very disappointed when I was accepted at LaSalle College. And I decided instead to go to a broadcasting drama school instead. And from that point on, it just was one step at a time. And I just would go with the flow. It was all luck. It was all God, however. But like I said, I've never made a plan. I've never had a strategy to say, I want to be in the biggest market in the world. I wanted to go here or that city. But it just, as things happened, I just took advantage of the opportunity, and I'm so grateful with all the opportunities that I was afforded.
So when you were at WIBG in Philadelphia, what years were you there?
You know, I was just, before talking to you, and you had mentioned that we might be talking about WIBG, I was trying to figure out when I was there. I mean, I know I was there in the 60s and again in the 70s. I was there twice. Once as Ray Gilmore and once as Sean Casey.
Okay.
Ray Gilmore was the early 60s, and I was there with, I was one of the WIBG good guys with Bill Wright and Joe Niagara Highlit that whole gang. And then, and that was, free for all time on the radio. I mean, it was more like Doug Luzone all the time. I mean, that kind of personality, and you could have such a good time when, and then I'd gone to New York and then came back from New York to Philadelphia. Don Cannon of WIBG at the time in the 70s brought me back, and I was doing afternoon drive there. And that was on, oh no, wait a minute. Yeah, okay. I missed the whole spot. I jumped the whole area. I was there in the early 60s. And then later when Paul Drew came in and turned it into a Bill Drake format, which I think Paul stole. Oh, I didn't say that. No, that couldn't have happened. If you've got the lawsuit ready to go,
yeah,
I apologize. No, but it was a similar format, and it was just bang, 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 bang. Personality, but in 6 seconds. If you couldn't say it over 6 seconds in the over the intro of the song, that was it. Otherwise, prior to that, with Hylette, Joe Niagara, and the early success of WIBG, we were all personality, all, you play a record, you talk about it for 30 seconds and you go on,
right.
or, go on. And sometimes it's like, why am I talking? I should be playing the music. That's why they're here.
Right. So I think it's interesting because you were at WIBG and you were up against a Drake station, WFIL, correct?
No,
when you were there.
We were the Drake station, pretty much.
Oh, you were the Drake station before.
Well,
WFIL?
it wasn't a Drake station in Philadelphia. I don't think FIL was a Drake station, but it was more of a Drake formatted station. Obviously, I think was it Jay Clark. I think was the PD at the time.
Okay. The only reason I say that WFIL was a Drake is because I was working with someone about a year ago who decided they were going to try to recreate the Drake format.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, they're not doing a very good job of it. And he worked at WFIL briefly when he said they were Drake. So it could have been Drake-like is what he meant. But have you heard any of these stations that are trying to recreate that sound of the 60s and early 70s on the internet?
On the internet? No, because I haven't spent much time on the internet.
Okay.
Or radio at all, to tell you the truth. One of the few stations I listen to is Hall of Fame, you guys.
Right.
That's pretty much it. I jump around once in a while and say, well, it's just somebody putting a bunch of songs together from back in the day.
Because I know when I talked to Doug about it, because I'm actually helping Doug with some of it right now, is that he looks at the Drake format and he said that in today's society, it's really difficult to have people be able to follow it, not only follow it, but to be able to have the jocks do it because it is so quick, it is so fast.
Oh, yeah, I mean, my wife, because of that education, that experience with Drake, and that clock that you had to be right on point every time. My nickname is the Time Master. Everything. What? I'm late for dinner. So what,
right.
Mr. Time Master? Why are you bugging?
Yeah. So do you think that it was actually indicative of the time, or do you think someone could come up with that format today and it would work?
I don't know. Does anybody have that format today?
Not that I know, other than the ones trying to recreate on the radio. But the problem is, and this is what I'm noticing, I came out of radio in the 80s, grew up listening to it in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I started in the 80s, and in the 80s, we were taught how to talk too much. And we would talk, and then we would talk over the song, and then we would talk when we came out of the song. And it was just a bunch of useless chatter. And when I would listen to your air checks, even at WOR, you were straight and to the point. There was no random conversation going on.
Right.
And it's taking me a long time. I don't know if you've listened to my program on Hall of Fame from noon until 3, is trying to get that bang, 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 bang. And because I think that's the way it should sound. And I enjoy doing it that way because it's much quicker. It's a faster pace type of format.
As long as you sound like you're having fun and a good time while you're doing that, that's what it's all about. And to be able to have a good time in 6 seconds or less, or
Right.
whatever time frame is over talking over the intro of a song, but not the lyrics. God forbid you step on a vocal. I remember one time I was doing a show with Paul Drew in this format. And when I first started doing that, I was actually doing the all-night show, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and I stepped on a vocal. My God, the phone rang, the hotline, and he reamed me good. It's like something like that. And you figure, uh-oh, my job's on the line, so we better get it right.
How many people are listening at 4 a.m. though?
Oh yeah, they were an awful lot of people.
And see, that's amazing, because with the internet coming into play now, and everybody's I mean, the audience is so segmented that it's very difficult to figure out who's listening to who, and what they're listening to, let alone, are they listening to terrestrial radio? Are they listening to satellite radio? Are they listening to internet radio? Are they listening to Spotify? Whatever it may be, there's just so many more alternatives out there today than there was when you were on the air. Do you think that would have changed the way you did things if you had all these things competing against you?
I would stick with the Drake format.
Okay.
I just think because, and you know who else did that? And he's my my idol. He was my, oh God, Dan Ingram. He was so entertaining at ABC over the intros. So he sounded like he was a part of the community, a part of the music, and just having a good time. And he was a wise guy, but the attitude worked with the music.
Right.
You know?
So do you think if someone gave you the opportunity to do it again, you would try?
Oh, me personally?
Yeah, you personally.
If I had a different life at this moment, right now,
Okay.
I've got some health issues, not myself, but in the family that I have to deal with. And basically I'm a caretaker. So I just don't have the time. I've had several opportunities to do that. I've got a friend that owns a couple of radio stations in Maine. I've got a friend in Vermont with a radio station. I've got one here in New England that has a radio station, and they'd love me, and I'd love to do it, but I just can't find it. Family first, unfortunately.
Right, I understand.
I shouldn't say unfortunately, but because of my circumstances.
So when did you actually get out of radio? When did you leave?
2008. 2008.
And what station were you on at the time in 2008?
WHGH in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you went,
I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Oh, I was WPLM FM in from HDH went to PLM. Well, okay, yeah. And I was the program director, and what happened was, that was my 67th birthday. And I was saying 6, 7, that 7 kept ringing in my head. And I said, my God, what am I still doing working at 67? So I started preparing at that point, to bail out and do something else. And that's when I spent more time with music.
Okay. So you were 67 when you started thinking about retirement.
Yeah. And right now I'm 80.
Holy, there is no way you're 80 years old.
Yeah, well, I am.
That is just downright amazing, because you do not look it. Because I was just doing the math right here and going, wait a minute, I can't, something must be wrong with my addition here, because there's no way. So when you left in 2008, when you left the station in Boston, was the music the same, or did formats change on you Were you able to adapt to different formats?
Well, I didn't have to. I don't quite understand. When I
Okay.
left,
Were you
I didn't
always playing the same type of music you were playing at WIBG and WOR?
I was playing the same music from 1960 at some point in every format, just
Okay.
about, you know. But no, at PLM, we were more the current, definitely
Okay.
the current music. But we'd throw in it. We had some other. We had Ron Del Chiesa, and he does Sinatra
Mhm.
show on the weekends, and we had a couple of other programs too that didn't fit the format, I thought, but they made money. And you know, when you go into try to make your point and your argument about to the general manager that well, this doesn't really fit, he said, yeah, but look at how much money it made.
Right.
Okay. You got
Yeah.
it.
In the late 90s, early 2000, I did a brief stint as a program director for a small AM in this area. And we had a polka show. And I thought polka music was dead. The same thing happened to me, going, that's the biggest moneymaker we have in the station. And the owner said if he could do it, he'd play polka 24/7 because
Yep.
people were listening to it.
Yep. That's
So
the dollar rules.
yeah. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing, in my opinion, because when you look at it, a lot of station owners out there are not worried about what they're putting on the air. They're worried about what money they're able to make.
Absolutely. That's why they're there. That's why they're in that business. And that's why it's
And
called a business.
yeah, and when I was working at the one station that I've been at 3 times, I was first on the air, and the owner of the station was in his mid 80s when he hired me, because they went on the air in 1927, and he still had controlling interest of the station when I started there in, what was it, 2000? No, it would have been 1990, 1991. And I asked him, I said, why aren't you playing this? He said, honestly, if I could get away with having dead air between the commercials, that's what I would do, because then I wouldn't have to pay you guys to be here.
Yep.
So again, it is really interesting, because when you talk to these people, and I remember going to school and learning how to do this and everything else, we thought we were doing it for the entertainment value and the information. And it was a rude awakening to us when we realized that's not what we're there for. We're there to make someone else money.
Yeah. We're there for our egos, and
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah. And again, I think it's kind of interesting to be able to talk to you about this, because it gives me a different perspective of what it was like in those early days. Because like I said, I was at the end of these big buyouts that happened, and everything that we started to see where radio was bought up by conglomerates instead of small groups that owned them at the time. So of the stations you worked with, WIBG, WOR, do you have a favorite where you were at?
You know, at the time, wherever I was at that time, that would have been my favorite and is my favorite.
Okay.
If I go back, because this is, like I said, I never had a plan, a strategy for my life, and all of a sudden I fell into this radio thing and music, and I just love music and I love creating. So where I was at a particular time was always my favorite. Every one of them. It was a little difficult on the transition from WIBG, having a wonderful time doing whatever you wanted in between the songs, and then going to the Drake format, right, where it's so strict and disciplined. And I guess that's the optimal word, the strictness and the discipline of it. That's the hardest part to get used to. But once you get used to it and you fall into it and it becomes comfortable for you, then it just flows, and it worked for me.
So you said your parents weren't too happy that you went into this line of work. Did they change their mind when you got your first paycheck?
You betcha. Not only that, but since I'm a Philadelphia boy, you know,
yeah,
born and raised in South Philly, all of a sudden the name Gilmore was on the #1 radio station, and all of a sudden it became a little, a little famous,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. And again, that's one of those questions is if the fame rubbed off on people that you were related to, and if they liked that
Right.
adoration that they were getting.
Yeah, the fame part of it, yeah, my ego loved every second of it.
Do you miss it?
Sometimes, but not really. I don't think about it much anymore. Again, I try to spend more time creating music and
Okay.
writing songs, producing, putting that all together. And then there's the marketing aspect of it. It's right. It's a dead end right now, but
Well,
I'm still trying. And there's so many more, just like radio, you have so many opportunities and outlets like your podcast and your radio and wherever. But with the music, you've got as an artist, you've got TikTok, you've got
yeah.
Instagram, you've got Facebook, and all. But trying to navigate all through that, and with that to get a hit record, it hasn't worked for me, but I know I'm not doing it right, and I really need help there.
Right.
But there are other independent artists who are doing that every day, and they're making a fortune and getting a lot of play.
I think it's interesting because you're actually, and again, you're 80 and you've seen the transition into the media that we're dealing with right now. If I would have told you when you started in the 1960s that this is where it was going to go, would you have actually seen what's happening now being possible?
I wouldn't even entered my mind. I was in the moment all the time. I was never looking to the future.
Mhm.
Again, that's part of my non-strategy strategy. Live for the,
Well,
live for the moment and make the best of it and do the best you can.
so you've been talking about your music and what you've done. Now, again, I showed the Spokesman album, and you were signed to Decca Records. How many how many albums did you do for Decca?
Well, we did one album. We had
Okay.
one hit song with them, but and that turned into the album. And we had a couple of other singles after that that didn't do as well. Uh, but we did have one. We actually did the Beatles' Michelle, and that was very big in Philadelphia, but never went anywhere after that. In fact, John Madeira, one of the Spokesmen, uh, ran into Paul McCartney once in London and said, "Hey, Paul, we did one of your songs. Isn't that
Uh-huh.
great?" And he just turned his back on him and walked away. Like, I think you'd be thrilled. Somebody else
Right.
could make money for you, for God's sake.
Right. So as you said, you're doing the music now. If radio wouldn't have been part of your life, do you think you would have been writing and performing music more than you did?
Uh, hmm. I think it's all of part of me, just music itself. Somewhere, somehow, I've always wanted to be involved with and have been involved with some aspect of music, and to be able to program a radio station
Right.
and determine who gets to listen to certain, I mean, that's quite a responsibility, and I love that aspect of it. And I think I've got great ears. I've
Well,
never missed a hit.
what amazes me, and when I talk to guys like you that had the opportunity of doing that, I'm jealous because I did have the opportunity to briefly, but mine was a station that was on the AM dial when AM radio was pretty much becoming obsolete at the time, before it went into the whole talk radio thing and the bartered radio programming. And we did it. We did well we were #1 in where we're at, which wasn't too hard because there was only 2 stations. And we were able to push into the Pittsburgh market, which was next to unheard of at the time. But just to be able to work on a station like WIBG or WOR or wherever, and being able to say, hey, I had the ear, I'm making these people money, I'm making them recognizable to the average public. That must have been a lot of a lot of pride and pressure at the same time.
Both, you're correct. Was the pride and the pressure, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And I mean, I don't know what to say about that, other than the two words that you use there. Yeah, there were always pressure. You know, the GM would come to you and, okay, it's when something happens on the air and callers start to complain. It goes to the GM and then to the PD and then to the individual who created that issue. So there's pressure there. And when ratings would fall a little bit, okay, let's get together. How are we going to straighten this out? We got to get it back. That was the pressure. And the pride was when the numbers came in and your station was doing extremely well and making everybody money. I'm like, whoa, how did this happen to me? And I still say that today.
Right.
When I look back, I was on the #1 station in the #1 market in the world. How did I get there? I'm this street kid from South Philly. How did that happen? But it happened. And
again, it is, when you think about it that way, it is kind of awe-inspiring that it was able to happen. So with the music you're writing right now, and the new one that you did, I only remember Tom Brady. I may be 80. I'm no Tom Brady. I knew I'd remember it. And that song there, was the inspiration is because you were 80?
Yep.
And that's why.
Absolutely. I said, oh my God, I'm 80. I don't believe that. And Tom Brady has been such a part of my life because I'm a New England guy and have been for the last almost 50 years. He's been such a thrill to me. He's made my Sundays, a lot of them. And he's entertained me for a long time. But all of a sudden it was like 80, Brady. Hey, that kind of like rhymes. Let me see if I can. But now 80, how do you make that work? Well, I know that Tom Brady is like the GOAT. Okay, the greatest of all time. Well, I'm not quite there, but I still feel like I may be 80, and no Tom Brady, but my pants still like to dance. You know, I still feel good. I enjoy music and life. And so, and then how do I do that? Well, let's see. Where do I start? Well, I didn't even go back all the way, because in 1941, when I was born, that was World War II. I didn't go back that far.
Right.
How do you compress all those years and everything that has happened in my lifetime, in almost a century? How do you compress that into a song? So I just took pieces and put them together, and hopefully it covered most of the career anyway.
So when you write your music, are you just writing the lyrics, or are you also writing the music behind it?
I cannot write a note of music.
Okay.
But I have an ear and I have a voice, so I can create a melody. And I create the words first. I know a lot of writers go with the music first and they try to do the lyrics later, but I do lyrics first and then I try to work it around. I just keep going over and over in my head, you know, oh, that'll work. You know, it just comes to me somehow.
So who's playing the music tracks for you?
Who's playing them?
Yeah, because the music itself, but that you're singing to.
Oh, okay. I work with a group. It's an internet group.
Okay.
They're called Studio Pros, and you find them on the internet under Studio Pros. And they are a group of LA musicians. They're all pros, and they play a lot of the hit. You'll probably hear them on, but you wouldn't be able to identify each individual one. They're all on many hit records. And also there's a Grammy-nominated engineer as a part of that group. I call them with an idea, and they say, okay, send it to me. And I just will email it my words and my music that I pound out on the computer with a microphone I have here in the basement. And I say, okay, this is the basic. Now I want that kind of tempo. I want strings. I want horns. I want the drums to do this, piano, guitars. And they put that all together, and then we mix it together. And that's the final product.
So because whenever you mention that group, it thinks of me of a 2021 version of the Wrecking Crew, but where they were studio musicians that were doing stuff like that. Except they were doing it with people live in studio, but you're able to record everything in your home and then send it to them.
I send it to them, and then they lay down a track, and then they send it back to me, okay, for approval. I say, okay, I like what we did there with the drums. Now let's see what we can come up with the piano. They come up with the piano, they send it back to me. Okay, well, maybe if the piano did such and such, is okay, we'll change that. And everything's a la carte, and you pay for everything a la carte.
So how many songs have you written overall in the last 8 years?
Oh, 8 years. Well, let's go back. Oh, okay. Probably about 80 songs. And I've only had full production of maybe, including the Spokesmen, because I wrote and sang on those. So Spokesmen albums, maybe 25, 30, full production.
Today, I know everything is about getting the music on the internet and people listening to it on iTunes and all these other outlets. But what was that feeling whenever you saw your music on an album, on a piece of vinyl, that they had your name, they had the cover note, the liner notes and all this, and then playing on one of the stations you worked at? How did you react to that?
I was ecstatic. Hearing it on the radio, I mean, seeing it in print was one thing, okay, but when I heard it on the radio, it was like goosebumps all over my body.
So when you did it, did you actually get to announce your own song, or was it played on someone else's shift?
Other shifts, yeah.
Okay.
Not mine. No,
they wouldn't. Why wouldn't they let you do it? I find that interesting.
I guess don't want the appearance of conflict. Like, wait a minute.
What conflict?
Yeah, exactly.
So, because it was really, you were in Philadelphia when that was released, weren't you?
Yes. I was working at WIBG at the time.
So how did it hit locally on the Philadelphia chart? Did it get a ranking or a number ranking?
I don't recall, but I know nationally we went to the Dawn of Correction. I think it was in the 20s was the highest it ever got. It was on Billboard and Cashbox. I think it was higher on Cashbox than on Billboard. But I remember, I think somewhere in the 20s, which was like, wow, that's just amazing, really. But the people that I worked with and the other Spokesmen, I mean, there's terribly talented guys, John Madera, David White. My God, I mean, they had Leslie Gore, You Don't Own Me. They produced that. Len Barry's number one, 1, 2, 3. Danny and the Juniors, that was Dave White and John Madera. And Danny, Dave White was the tenor of Danny and the Juniors.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, these guys were in the business and in music and knew what was going on and how to get things done. And so I was, oh, don't go away, telephone. Spam call. Thank you.
So the interesting thing is, so how did the three of you get connected together to do that?
I'm not sure. Well, that particular album, I know how that happened, but just to get together, I'm not sure. I used to, for somehow, found myself in their building, and they worked in the Schubert building, which is a theater in Philadelphia. And in there were people like Gamble and Huff doing music, and it's almost like the Brill Building in New
Okay.
York. But it was Philadelphia's answer to the Brill Building. And that's where they would hang out and create. And somehow I wound up over there, and I can't remember. I keep trying to figure out, how did we ever get together? But it happened. Anyway, but with Dawn of Correction, I was on the air when the Eve of Destruction was released with
Right.
Barry Mcguire. And I said, wow, that's powerful. It's so negative. And I'm really a very positive person. And somehow I said, there's got to be a way. And I think, how about the Dawn of Correction? And that, within a couple of days, we were in my house in South Philly, the three of us, up all night long, and we wrote the song. And then we looked at each other and said, oh, this has to get out quick, because the other one's already almost #1. And if we're
Right.
going to answer this thing, we have to move fast. We don't have any groups in the building that we know. Okay, we'll be the Spokesmen. And we decided to go in and do it ourselves. And then when it became popular and Decca wanted an album, then we had to put the whole package together. So we wrote a whole bunch of songs.
So did you ever meet Barry Mcguire?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. But somebody introduced me to him. Who was it? Not in person. Was it Yvette?
Oh, really?
I think, and told me about something that she was involved in that had something to do with Barry Mcguire. Anyway, I never met the man, but
Because I think it would be interesting to find out what his reaction was when he heard someone answer the song.
probably the same as David Crosby. David Crosby, Stills Nash at the time, we were doing TV shows promoting the album out in California, and I forget what show it was. We did Shindig, that was national, and then we did a ton of local TV shows. And one of the other guests was Crosby, Stills, and Nash. They did theirs, and then we came on and we did our song, "The Dawn of Correction." And David Crosby walks over to me and he goes, "You really believe all that crap?" Well, David, I want to tell you, somebody likes it because it's got some numbers on the charts. Obviously, not as many as yours, but don't want to start an argument with Mr. Crosby.
So you were on Shindig then?
Yeah, we did Shindig. That was
I
fun.
had the opportunity a while ago to interview the female performer that was on Shindig pretty much every week by the name of Donna Lauren, who also had a music career, except she was doing the California sound at the time. And she was also the Dr. Pepper girl. So that's interesting.
The name, I remember that. Yeah.
But again, I find that interesting that a kid from South Philly, they take him to California to promote an album, and you do this. Did you think this was going to be your next step? You were getting out of radio, you were going straight into music?
No, but that would have been nice.
Well, yeah.
But no, I never gave it any thought, really. Again, no plans, no strategies. I took what came to me and did the best I could with it, whether it was an idea, a career move, whatever, no plans.
So we talked about your most recent one. You did the other one, but I guess it's been about a year and a half now dealing with COVID.
Yeah,
what is next? What is the next one that you're going to do? Do you have any idea?
Oh, I know exactly what it is, but I can't do it yet because it's so personal.
Okay.
And it has to do with the situation I'm going through with the health issues in the family.
Okay.
And as long as they're breathing, I can't really.
I understand.
I can't do that.
Okay. So you said that you're able to do the music, you're doing everything else, but you're having problems with the marketing. Is that what
Yeah,
you're just not getting it out there?
yeah, up against the wall. Trying to, the only thing I really have is LinkedIn, and whenever I go to LinkedIn, I scour, anybody who's a program director or anyone has anything with to do with radio, and I send them. I try to get their contact number, and some of them don't even give their emails, but I'll send an email of my
Right.
stuff and say, I certainly would appreciate a consideration of giving this a listen and maybe some airtime. If you can spare some air for this independent artist, would appreciate it.
Have you gotten positive response by doing that?
At times, yeah, I've gotten a few, and most of them have been people with podcasts, as
Well,
opposed.
which from what they're telling me, that's the new way to go, because people are getting tired of corporate radio because it sounds the same day in and day out. I'm surprised the song hasn't, because of the Tom Brady aspect. Now I know there's bad feelings in Boston still because he went to Tampa Bay, but those areas didn't pick up the song, because there I thought there would be, at least there's a connection.
That's what I felt as well. I got a whole list of local DJs and got their emails. I sent them all an individual copy. Zero. And the one that really bothers me is the guy. Well, two local stations. One that I left, that I retired from. They certainly could have aired that.
Right.
And another one that I've done work for in the past. I sent it to them as well, in every one of their disc jockeys, along with the program director, and got zero response. And that's also a station that has tried to get me to come back to be on the air again. Maybe that's their way of saying,
I find that, I kind of find that odd, but do you think it's because the program director, it's because they don't do independent artists, that everything's coming down from a corporate headquarters, and the name program director is this just a title?
That pretty much. I mean, what do we have anymore? What, 3, maybe 4 large corporations that own everything?
Right.
Yeah. So if you got one person sitting here and they're saying, okay, you in San Francisco will do that, and Philadelphia that, Boston here, New York there, and even the same announcers, same guy doing every market. It's all come together under one umbrella.
So and you mentioned that the one guy in every market. Have you voice tracked before?
Yeah, yes, I have. Yeah, I did that.
What are your thoughts on it? Because I've heard people go different directions with it.
Well, what I did was I just was myself. I had a good time, and it was more of a Drake format, and it was an oldies format, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was just curious, because I've talked to some and said, no, you have to do it live. You have to do it live. And then the other ones that like the voice track, I hate to say it because I voice track and I was against it 100% until I talked to Doug, and Doug talked me into it basically. And I said, sure, I'll try it. I fell in love with it because it gives you a little bit more. You don't have to worry about what's coming up next. You don't have to worry about that. You can just focus on what you have to do.
What you have to do, what you have to say, or about yourself, or what's going on in the world, or the music itself. The one thing that always worried me about that was it's all done on the internet.
Right.
Stuff goes wrong,
Knock on wood, it's more reliable than you think, which amazes me.
I mean, your computer goes down, or the internet goes down, or you have storms, and you get bad signal from whoever.
It is and for those of you that are listening and watching this, we're giving away all these secrets. But the thing I find interesting about it is that the way my setup is here, I honestly sound like I'm in the studio wherever master headquarters is, which is amazing to me.
Oh yeah.
Because to me, I always thought it would have sounded hollow or it would have sounded a little bit tinny, but no, it sounds like I'm there, which is amazing.
Absolutely. There's a lot, the presence is very obvious.
Yeah. So again, it's just the technology has moved so far and so fast. And I don't know if the population or the general population has caught up with it yet. But I think that for people introducing new music like yourself, the way to go is through online stations or through podcasts or whatever it may be, because the corporations aren't giving anybody a chance like they did 60 years ago.
Unless you're Sony or Universal, and and the big bucks are coming your way.
Because I talked to a gentleman a while back who's also from Philadelphia. The guy's name is Fabian, who's actually I talk to on a regular basis because he doesn't live far from me now. Yeah.
Fabian, my God, we played so much of his music, you know, the Tiger, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I think he's South Philly as well.
Yes.
Not just Philadelphia, but South Philly. Yeah. I mean, we had Bobby Rydell, Fabian, Frankie Avalon, Mario
which
Lanza.
is interesting. Those three guys are still performing, and they call themselves the Golden Boys. But Fabian actually moved back to, he's about 25 miles from where I'm sitting right now because of his wife, which I know her, and that's how I met up with him. But I was talking to him about a year ago. He came out with a new version of Tiger, which was for the Wildlife Foundation for the saving of tigers, whatever it was, because it was his way of answering to that Netflix series called Tiger King, who he thought they were just treating the animals cruelty. And he said the same thing. He says, I can't get anybody to play it. Yep. And he says, it's a new mix. It's a little bit of an updated one. He said, but you would think that because of me having some type of reputation in the past, that someone would have enough courage to put it on the air, even these oldie stations, and they weren't doing it.
Yeah. And that's the situation with Brady on the two local stations here we're in the Boston area. Tom Brady, by the way, and I call the presentations are all created by the Sean Casey experiment. Okay, Sean Casey has some meaning in New England.
Right.
And why those two things wouldn't resonate with an audience one way or another, at least there'd be some familiarity. There's some meaning there. It's beyond me.
Did you ever think of trying to get it to Tom Brady?
I've on Facebook. Well, I just joined the Tom Brady group, and I keep putting it in. Maybe somebody in that group will somehow get it to him. But yeah, I've tried, but or Gronk,
Yeah, actually, I think I may know someone that's connected with Gronk, because actually Gronk went to school in Pittsburgh his last 2 years of high school. So I'll reach out to them and see if we can do something. But again,
please.
Yeah, I've been trying. Everybody I've talked to, there's another musician I've talked to who's also an actress, and we were going back and forth, and she's run into the same problem that you have. Now you have a definite sound. Hers is a little bit more of the experimental side, and there's no one out there in terrestrial radio that plays what she does. So she's running into the same type of problem where they don't want to risk it because it's not a sure thing.
I have mentioned to a couple of folks in radio and programming positions that, wouldn't it be a good idea to just have DIY folks, just independent music all the time? Now there's a couple of internet programs that do that. But on terrestrial radio to have that as well. One person does it that I know of in the Boston market, and that's on one of the stations that won't play my music that I actually worked for quite a while ago, and wants me to come back. But they have one section in the evening, one night a week, where they only play local independent artists. You would think.
That's right. You're local.
Hello.
So, okay. The question is, have they played the Spokesmen before? And do they, if they have, do they realize who it is?
Sure. They very well, they know who I am. Yeah.
And that to me, that's just amazing. Another thing to look at, and I never thought of this before, is there are college radio stations out there that are looking for stuff like this too, because it's unique. And it's a big deal to be able to sit down and talk to the writer of the song, let him introduce it, and then play it. So that may be another avenue to go.
Yeah, I've done some of that. One of them, it's part of some group on the internet, and I signed up with the college radio stations, and I had to pay like, I don't know, 40 or 50 bucks for maybe 6 weeks of promotion on LA. It was in LA because they had Chicago, I think it was Chicago, New York, and LA, and maybe Atlanta were four of the markets where the colleges would play independent unknown artists. And so I paid to have that done. I hate to be paying, but if you got to do it, you got to do it. And why isn't that payola?
Yeah, well, you're right. I didn't think of that. It's pay to play. I mean, yeah, that's true.
And also a part of that, they won't pay royalties.
That's odd. But again, they want something for nothing, but they want you to pay for the service. That's interesting.
Yeah. And again, it's college, so it's education also. Maybe that's
I work college radio. I don't know how educational it was. Anyway, hey, Sean, thank you very much. Or Ray, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
It's good for now.
I really had a nice time and talking about the days in radio and what you're doing in music now and everything else. This was a pleasure. And the next one or anything you have coming up, let me know, because again, I'll be more than happy to share it. Luckily, I do have an outlet that I can play it. And my boss says it's okay to do it, so we're in good shape. Plus my boss wants to go to lunch with you. He keeps telling me that he's going to get in touch with you so you guys can go out.
He has, and I said yes, we're going to do this as soon as I can find out on my calendar when I'm not going to a doctor or I'm not taking somebody to a doctor. But I thank you, and I really appreciate the conversation and talking to me. And as I always end my shows with, stay warm, be cool, keep the beat, let your love light shine, respect thyself and everyone else.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and you are a legend in the industry. You may not think so, but trust me, you are, because your name has come up in conversation with people when I mentioned that I have spoken to you before, and they go, "You mean?" And I said, "Yes, that's who it is." And again, for someone who is 80 years old, you look amazing. I mean, honestly, you don't look over 50.
I feel a little more than that.
Well, I'm 55 and I feel like I'm 80. So anyhow.
Well, thank you again so much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Hey, a big thank you goes out to Ray Gilmore for joining me today as we talked about the days of WIBG Radio, WIBG in Philadelphia. Not only did we talk to Ray about that, we also talked to him about his name change when he became Sean Casey at WOR in New York. We also talked to him about the Sean Casey experience and their new song, I May Be 80. And we're going to be sharing that with you as we leave today. So thank you very much for joining me, and we'll talk to you next time here on One with Bill Alexander. You guys have a great one. And here's the Sean Casey experience, I May Be 80.
I may be 80 and no Tom Brady, but my pants still like to dance, and I still love my lady. hard-to-trot teaser. Thank God you let me be your caring squeezer pleaser. Survived the 60s, made it to now, frequently blundering, wondering how. Motown, Beatles, Stones, and now Camelot, no wave of calm. I may be 80. Decades pass, more war and pain. Culture mores slowly change. Could what's been wrong soon be right? Could hopes and dreams be in sight? I may be 80 and no Tom Brady, but my pants still like to dance, and I still love my lady. I'm a geezer, not a weezer, a hot-to-trot teaser. Thank God you let me be your caring squeezer pleaser. Combat COVID needs vaccine. Daily life's in quarantine. Social issues loudly heard, but will all the leaders keep their word? I may be 80. Clothes much tighter, hair now thin. Little dark marks all over my skin. Roads a load, no GPS. Twisting and turning, off in a mess. I may be 80 and no Tom Brady, but my pants still like to dance, and I still love my lady. I'm a geezer, not a weezer, a hot-to-trot teaser. Thank God you let me be your caring squeezer pleaser. Everyday potholes hard to avoid, challenging confidence never destroyed. Made it with aches, made it with pains. Hello wrinkles and walking cane. I may be 80. Got no regrets for choices made. Loved ones missed as memory fades. Pretty soon my name's in a frame, and photographs are what's left of my game. I may be 80 and no Tom Brady, but my pants still like to dance, and I still love my lady. I'm a geezer, not a weezer, a hot-to-trot teaser. Thank God you let me be your caring squeezer pleaser. I may be 80 and no Tom Brady.
Thank you for listening to One-on-One with Bill Alexander. One-on-One with Bill Alexander is a $1 Million Baby production. For more information, go to BillAlexander.net.